Welcome to Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game. Hi everyone, I'm your host, Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and money gamer extraordinaire. Today we're talking about consumers at the mercy of insurance companies with attorney Elia Lirma. Welcome to the show, Elia.
Hey, Steve.
Elia, I have to say, you're an attorney. Your area of expertise is insurance prosecution, litigation. It's huge, right? I mean, that's your area.
Insurance producer negligence, primarily.
And if we're just a normal consumer, we're told to sign things, buy things, we have product, we have no idea. And I would like to ask you some questions that may be able to help us out. Now, I've heard one of the things we want to do is we want to vet the person that we're going to start having a relationship with. I don't even know how to do that except for maybe go out on LinkedIn and look at a bio or try to figure out if I can get a recommendation from another friend of mine. Maybe they'll refer me to somebody. But I've heard that some people use an engagement letter. And a letter that kind of spells out what the insurance producer will do and what my obligations as the consumer. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I feel like I'm at the mercy of insurance companies as well as insurance agents.
Well, an engagement letter isn't something that you will see in every insurance practice. Unfortunately, a lot of insurance professionals overlook that because they believe that there's already an understanding about the relationship that's going to be had with the particular client. But an engagement letter is a really good indication that your insurance producer or your insurance broker is of the mindset that they want to confirm their understanding of what your interests are, and also that they want to lay out your obligations in terms of communicating any changes in relationships, any changed financial circumstances, and that type of information. And a good engagement letter will actually specify obligations for both parties as they enter into the relationship.
Another thing I've noticed in a few people that just started doing this, and I don't see this out in the market, but as a consumer, I think it would be great. They always bring a big plan. It looks like a dictionary. I'm looking for a basic summary sheet, just a basic idea that I can understand. And when I have a summary sheet of the planning and product recommendations, I think I can see it better. Is there any way so that the advisor, whoever I choose, is protecting himself, but I want him to dumb it down. I want him to be able to tell me exactly what I'm getting in easy to understand layman language.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of insurance professionals rely very heavily on the promotional materials given to them by the insurance company for whom they're selling. So they don't always generate their own forms and tend to use some very generic materials, promotions, and sales materials. So what you want to do in advance of meeting your insurance professional is do a little bit of research on your own. Take a look at what various insurance terms mean. Understand the difference between umbrella policies and other errors and omissions policies. Or if you have a business, familiarize yourself with the types of business coverage that might be applicable to you and your circumstances. So that would be the first thing, is before you ever even walk in the door, do some of your own research. So that way, when your insurance professional starts talking to you about succession plans and any business liability coverages that you might need, you know what questions to ask. That, above all, is probably the biggest pitfall, is most people just don't know what to ask, so they don't know what they're getting. They might be getting enough information from the agent, but because they don't have a working knowledge of how the products work, they don't know how to ask any follow-up questions.
Let's say I'm just a normal person and I'm buying auto insurance. I'm buying homeowners insurance. I really am not that big to go and get an umbrella policy, at least in my own view. Maybe he'll tell me different. So I just want to know, what do I need to, I'm prepping myself. I don't know anything about auto insurance. I just want to be protected. I want to have what I need and no more. I'm pretty sure I'm just like everybody else. I don't want to spend another dime on insurance, anything, than I have to. But I still want to be protected and what I should be. Now, for example, I have a teenage son. He's driving. I'm thinking I need a little bit of extra protection. I don't think I had to go to Google for that, right? But I'm looking for, what can I do to prep myself? Now, you said to educate yourself, and hopefully there's stuff out online that I can kind of read and contrast different views. But now I'm looking, who do I pick? I mean, in our community here, we're broadcasting right out of Phoenix. This is one of the top metro areas in the United States. There's thousands of agents. I don't even know where to start.
Right. It's a very competitive field. One of the good recommendations always comes from family and people who've been with their insurance producers for a lengthy period of time. But again, you want to first educate yourself, but when you actually meet with that insurance professional, they should be telling you some of the advantages of coverage, but they're going to be a good agent if they're telling you some of the disadvantages, what this product is not going to cover. If they're giving you a very comprehensive picture about what it is that you're getting, then you're probably have a more forthright and candid producer who's not just interested in getting percentages of the premium dollars they're going to be bringing in. So that's a real key aspect. The other thing too is an agent who during the year is interested. They're paying attention to the fact that you may have acquired more vehicles. You may have upgraded your family home, and so they see changes in your financial position and they want to make recommendations to you that are appropriate. Again, not just to make the sale, because a good agent is going to tell you what their products actually don't cover.
We come back from the break. We're going to talk about a few things that you can do to help prep before you go into one of these meetings to make you feel a little bit more secure and a little bit more empowered. We'll be right back after the break.
Take a close look at your hard-earned dollar. How do you think your money's doing? Are you keeping an eye on it? Is it protected from taxes, inflation, and market risk? Over time, those Washingtons could become Franklins. With tax-advantaged indexed universal life from one of the largest distributors of indexed universal life, Ash Brokerage.
One of the things I've learned as a regular consumer when I started actually bringing people in that are not my expertise, I don't do auto, I don't do homeowners, I don't do pup policies. So I started taking notes. Me, the consumer, I'm taking notes. Well, what do I need to comply with Arizona law since we're broadcasting out of Arizona? I also wrote down, I wanted to know, are there other options? Is it your company? Is there other companies? Are you looking across the same? I'm asking questions and taking notes on how they answer. How important is that for a consumer to take charge of that meeting and start taking notes and asking questions of the producer or the agent they're in front of?
Well, it's highly important because, as you just stated in the first segment, you can want all kinds of protection. You can go into an insurance agent and say, I want to be fully covered. Let's take the context of auto coverage, which is very straightforward for most people. I just want full coverage. Well, most people don't realize that that doesn't actually have any legal significance. Full coverage generally in most jurisdictions only means the state minimum limits. In Arizona, that's only $15,000 per person, $30,000 per accident. That's a lot. That's very little insurance that you're dealing with. So are you fully protected if you have minimum limits and you have $1 million home and a business and 2 automobiles? That policy is going to be exhausted very early on, and you're going to be liable for an excess judgment if your insurance producer hasn't protected you to the full extent.
But in contrast, for the consumer's sake, I don't want to just be loading up on major, advantages or major benefits that like now I went from $15,000 to $100,000 per person, $300,000, which is I could get.
Absolutely.
So how do I get in the middle here as a consumer and purchase correctly?
Well, again, you want to know what your potential risk exposure is. If there is, in fact, a significant accident where you are responsible, can you afford to pay a judgment if it's more than $100,000? If it's a catastrophic injury case, unfortunately, fatalities happen. Are you going to be in a position where your job and your earnings are going to be able to cover anything over that $100,000 policy? So those are decisions that you need to make with the counsel of your professional advisor. But you should be taking notes about what their recommendations are. And as you evolve professionally or situationally, you begin to grow your family and that you are desirous of protecting, then you want to be sure that your insurance needs increase. Cost is not necessarily what you want to focus on. You want to focus on the aspects of protection. So an agent who's focusing only on how much money they can save you is doing you a disservice. So you really need to pay attention to the type of coverage that you're getting versus just cost.
So 15 seconds may not save you 15%. I'm just saying.
It may in the short term, but if you get involved in in an accident, it's.
I think consumers should really think about this idea, and I've shared this before on other programs. Sometimes when we're in an area we're really not really good at, we're not schooled in, sometimes I like to bring maybe a family member that's a little bit more, aware. Maybe my CPA, my accountant, he may be able to help me out. Maybe even my attorney that I golf with. I might want to bring somebody else in because it's really outside my area, my purview, and I'm really uncomfortable. If you get to the part where you say, Steve, I feel uncomfortable, that's the time to start looking to third-party help here. And don't you see that as a really wise thing to do yourself in your practice? Because people who just rely on the agent and just sign the contract blindly are really the people that we're talking about that sometimes get hurt.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's the uninformed client who is not aware of the risks that they have exposed themselves to. And for a number of years where I started doing litigation involving personal lines insurance, I would offer as a free service to not only my clients but to their families to simply take a look at their declarations pages of their personal policies. And I would make recommendations. I mean, I was doing the job effectively that I felt an insurance professional should be doing. This is what they're supposed to be doing, not just copying what they had from the year before and the policy before that and the policy before that. Well, there's supposed to be an ongoing dialogue about what your insurance needs are. And I found myself as the attorney making those recommendations above and beyond what the insurance professional was recommending because I didn't want to see my clients continue to get exposed.
One of the things we do, and you can always order this right off the show, we always have life events, which really give you different things that could occur in your life from beginning to the end of your life, and all the things that you want to talk about to whatever your agent or your advisor, those all there. So if you have an event, hey, I had a new child, a new grandchild, I bought a new home, I bought another car, I bought an RV, you know, whatever I'm doing, or I transferred, I'm with a brand new advisor on my financial issues. I can go ahead and update that because really a lot of the recommendation we say is your advisor should be meeting with you once a year.
Absolutely.
I mean,
yeah, that seems to be very standard in the industry.
One more thing before we get out of here. We all have smartphones now. I mean, I have a smartphone, and I was in a meeting where the person came to me and he said, my agent, he's been my agent for a long time, he said, Steve, it's time to up your game. You need to start buying an umbrella policy. And I said, what for? He says, because, you know, you have teenage drivers, things happen, it could exceed the car policy. So I want you to think about it. And it was very inexpensive to cover. I thought it was a great idea. But I didn't understand it. So I said, do you mind if I take my iPhone out, which I did, and I record how you're explaining this to me so I can understand it? This is the new wave defense for the consumer. I'm pulling my iPhone out and I'm recording it because I'm not sure I'm getting it.
Right. iPhone apps, sometimes photographs of the actual document of the policy language. If you want to take it to your attorney for review, you want to be able to policy shop, compare this company's policy to another policy. There should be there should be an evolution of transparency. There should be an openness and willingness of your insurance producer to want to share that information from you. None of these are really privileged documents. You can get an Allstate or State Farm policy pretty much from any of your friends or neighbors and look at the language. But so your agent should be willingly providing you this documentation evidence so that you can make sure that you are assured. And if they're not doing that for you, you should look elsewhere for an insurance advisor.
You're hearing Ilya Lirma, prosecuting attorney. She's telling you, heads up, consumer, this is what we should be looking at. That's the time and all the time we have for today's show. I want to thank Ilya for being my special guest and today's Money Mentor. And before moving forward with any of the ideas on our show, always consult your tax advisor, in our case, our legal counsel. And remember, just as the good Reverend John Wesley once said, make all you can, save all you can, give all you can. I'm Steve Savant. We'll see you next week.